Alright, thank you for coming to our presentation on how to create a meatball sandwich of greatness. Now, here's the important thing. It's a simple combination of bread, sauce, meat, a little bit of herbs, of course the cheese, and I'm going to lead you through and hopefully I'll make you hungry. Let's begin. Alright, so the meatballs meat is quite simple. All that is needed is a half pound of ground sirloin. It's got a great fat content. A half pound of ground pork, completely necessary. If you want, you can add a half pound of ground lamb, make it more substantial, a little bit more earthy flavoring to it. Now, to add to the meat, you're going to need to add some seasoning. That's going to just be an egg, some breadcrumbs, a little bit of onion, garlic, red pepper flakes, optional if you like heat, Worcestershire, parsley, salt, pepper, and the Parmesan grated cheese, a little shaky can you can buy at any grocery store. It's a binder. Now, the sauce proportions are quite simple. It's 1 cup of Italian breadcrumbs, 1 medium onion, finely chopped. You don't want big chunks of onion in your meatballs. Half a teaspoon or more of red pepper flakes if you like it spicy. 2 teaspoons of Worcestershire, a pinch of salt and pepper. That's pretty simple. Now, the sauce. It's going to be a little bit of oil, just 1-2 rounds around the pan, dumping oil in. A couple garlic cloves chopped. You're going to add in the herbs and pepper. Now you're going to allow the oil to infuse. Now you're going to also add 28 ounces of crushed tomatoes and 14 ounces of chunky tomatoes blended into like a paste kind of thing. Yeah. So now we're going to move on to the bun, or meat cradle, or bread. It's a nicely toasted and buttered brioche roll, about 6 to 8 inches in length. It'll help cradle your meatballs and make a eatable sandwich. Now we're going to go on to the cheese. You can get a bag of mozzarella, 10 ounces, or you can shred it off the block. Now you need to have the block cooled of cheese, because cold cheese is easier to grate than warm cheese. And if you want a little more creaminess, you can add a little bit of provolone, less than an ounce. You don't want to overwhelm the mozzarella. Now, you're going to do some herbs for fanciness. You're going to shred a little bit of basil, a little bit of arugula. I like them. Arugula's got a little spiciness to it. Basil's got a little bit of earthiness to it. It makes the sandwich taste a little bit elevated. It's goodness. Now, you're going to be mixing the meat together. You're going to need a large bowl. You can use metal, wood, whatever you prefer. You need a big enough bowl to mix all the seasonings from slide 3, the egg, the breadcrumbs, and all of that together. And you're going to have to get your hands dirty because you need to mix the meat thoroughly with all the ingredients and make sure it's nicely mixed through. Now, when you get your meat mixed, you're going to leave it aside for a second. You're going to start the sauce. So you want a saucepan over medium heat. You're going to add in the oil and garlic. You let that sit for a minute. Then you add more herbs and some crushed pepper. You're going to allow that oil to infuse. You're going to stir in the tomatoes, the blended tomatoes, pinch of salt and pepper, and just let that start cooking. Now, while that's cooking, you're going to start the meatballs. Preheat your oven to 450 degrees, because if you cook it on the stove, you'd get grease and splatter everywhere. So roll the meatballs into equal size, fit in the palm of your hand, space them out evenly on a cooking sheet, and you're going to roast those meatballs for 12 minutes or a little longer, depending on your oven and elevation and all that stuff. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to bring your sauce to a boil after you combine them, because boiling means it's actually cooked. If you don't bring it to a boil, you don't know if it's actually cooked or not. Now you're going to let that cool slightly before you add that to the meatballs, because the hot sauce will overcook your meatballs, and that's just gross. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to prepare for sandwich assembly. This is important. Line up all your rolls on plates. Make sure they are toasted and buttered. Now, you're going to pull your meatballs out of the oven, let them rest. You're going to have your pan on your stove cooling the sauce. Then you're also going to have your bag or pile of cheese on standby as well. So, you got to check for proper cooking of the meatballs. You don't want to give raw meatballs to kids or eat them in yourself. So, you can cut them in half, make sure they're not pink, and they need to be at a temperature of 160 degrees Fahrenheit or higher, depending on if you like well done or not, but they have to be 160. Got to have safe food practices. Now you're going to stir the sauce. This is important because You want to mix all the oil, floating oil or anything back into the sauce. You want it smooth and consistent. You don't want any lumps of herb or garlic or anything like that. You want it all mixed thoroughly, nice and smooth. That way it coats your meatballs without having big chunks. It's time to add the meatballs to the sandwich. You only need 4. It should line up from one end of the bun to the other end of the bun. That is crucial. That's why I said 6 to 8 inches on the bun size. It should fit 4 meatballs perfectly from one end to the other. I know my picture shows them in sauce. You can pre-put them in sauce, get them nice and coated, but you want to make sure you're going to be pouring the sauce to coat the meatballs. You don't want to dump sauce all over your roll because then you'll have a nice saucy roll and it might get soggy and your sandwich fall apart. So just pour enough to cover the top of the meatballs completely. You don't want to see meatballs anymore, but you want to make sure you still see the bun. Now you're going to cover it in cheese. Now, you can add in the shredded provolone, mozzarella, mix it all over the top. But make sure it's evenly distributed, and if you want, you can put it back in the oven for a little bit and make that cheese nice and crispy. I just like it plain old melting from the heat of the meatball and cheese itself. Yeah. So now we're going to add in the herbs. Just sprinkle on top like fresh morning snowfall. It's going to look pretty. It's going to taste good. Add a little extra note to your sandwich. Even make it more delicious. Now, it's just about eating time, so you want to make sure you're ready. Enjoy your meatball sandwich of greatness, and thank you for coming to my presentation.